Okay, before we begin, let me share the meeting agenda. Stand by. So here's the meeting agenda. Hope everyone can see it. I lost my place here. So we'll begin with calling the meeting to order and then a roll call. Follow that, we have 3 informational presentations to the committee tonight. 4th item on the agenda is discussion item. Item number 5 is for the public to provide comments on topics that are not on the agenda. So let's begin our meeting. For the record, it is now 6:03 and this meeting is called to order. Next, I'll do a roll call. I'll be calling out each committee member's name alphabetically. And if you are here, please say you're here. Parvin Ahmadi. David Berman.
Here.
Sharon Boholman.
Here.
Chris Chandler.
I'm here.
Janita Chu.
Present.
Bruce Doogie.
Hello, I'm here.
Rachel Factor. Dan Leary.
Here.
Armin Lopez. Matt Wing. Michael Williams.
Here.
Aaron Salas. Rebecca Stanek-Rykoff.
Here.
Did I say your name right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Cindy Torres. Okay. So before I continue, I just want to check the attendance, the people on the attendees list. See if I'm missing anybody. Stand by here. Okay, so looks like we have 8 members present for tonight's meeting. All right, moving on to agenda item number 3 is our presentation. The first presentation is our Safe Route to School study that we conducted a few years ago. I will be the presenter for this item, so let me bring up my PowerPoint slide. Please stand by. Okay, so this is our first presentation. We will go over the county Safe Route to School study and some of the safety improvements that we implemented based on the study's recommendations. Before I begin, here's our presentation outline. We'll begin with an overview of the study itself, including its purpose, number of schools involved, and the timeline of the study. Next, we will describe the short-term safety measures that have been put in place around the schools. We will then show you the longer-term safety improvement projects, such as sidewalk construction or bike safety project that we have completed or currently under construction. After that, we will show you the educational element and enforcement elements that to help us keep students safe on the street near the schools. And at the end, we'll wrap it up with some Q&A. So let's start with the overview of this Safe Route to School study. The primary purpose of this study is to identify different strategies and measures to improve safety for those who walk or bike in the vicinity of the schools. The study took a comprehensive approach and included the 3 E's in traffic safety, namely engineering, education, and enforcement. The study was also geographically encompassing and included all the schools in the unincorporated area. And as we review traffic safety at each location, we recognize that each school site has different challenges Therefore, the safety recommendations were customized to each school based on the findings of the study and the needs of the student. And lastly, this study was funded by FHWA as part of the Active Transportation Program, which is a program designed to encourage less driving and more walking and biking. As mentioned in my last slide, this school safety study included all the schools in the unincorporated areas. And here's a list of the 35 schools and the 5 school districts involved in the study. So how long did it take for us to study all 35 schools? It roughly took about 2 years from start to finish. Most of the data collection took place in the spring of 2017 with site evaluations and meeting with the stakeholders such as students, parents, and school administrators. By summer of 2017, different recommendations for traffic safety countermeasures were being considered. Toward the end of that same year, we had already begun to implement some of the short-term countermeasures at different schools. The following year, in 2018, we continued to refine and modify the final safety recommendations. And finally, in mid-2019, the final report of the study was completed and shared with all stakeholders. Now, even though we have to evaluate many different schools over fairly short amount of time, our review and evaluation at each school is guided by 4 key elements. Number one, we actively pursue strategies designed to prevent accidents involving those walking and biking near the schools. In addition to preventive measures, we also included educational programs to promote safety for pets and bicyclists. Training programs were also made available to support groups such as parent or school administrators if necessary. And lastly, safety improvement measures have been selected and prioritized in order to turn our transportation investment into safer streets as quickly as possible. The short-term safety improvement recommendations listed in the study is a perfect example of prioritizing our transportation money. These short-term improvement measures can be put in quickly so that our communities can experience immediate safety benefit. Here are some examples of these short-term measures, and we will look at each one of these in more detail in the next few slides. The first short-term measure I want to highlight is the high visibility crosswalk. Compared to traditional crosswalk, these high visibility marking is much more effective in raising drivers' awareness of the presence of pedestrians. Here are a few example intersections where we have put in this type of device. As you can see on this list, we have installed them in a wide range of settings. We have put them in at an urban residential area, such as Hesperian Elementary School in San Lorenzo. We've also put these in a much more rural setting, such as Sano Glen Elementary School out in Sano. At some schools, we have implemented parking and turning regulations. These regulations improve visibility near the school driveways, and they facilitate more orderly traffic movement. And this is especially important during the time right before school and right after school. So here are a few examples that we show on the slide. And the photo you see here, these were taken from Creekside Middle School and San Lorenzo High School. The safe route to school had indicated low yielding rate to pedestrian on some of the street. As a result, the study recommended installing push button activated flashing beacons to provide warning to driver when pets are about to cross the street. In these photos, you see these installation near Grand Elementary School in San Lorenzo and Edendale Middle School in Ashland. At some school sites, the study also called for installing additional warning signs and pavement legend to remind drivers of the presence of schools and students in the vicinity. Idina Avenue in Castro Valley is a good example why this is necessary. This street is normally just a quiet residential street that runs along the backside of a charter school, and without these warning signs and pavement markings, the presence of the school would not be as obvious to students or to drivers. We all know that speeding is a problem. Around school, speeding is especially problematic. So as countermeasures, we have implemented a number of traffic calming devices, such as speed hum and speed radar sign. These devices are designed to get drivers to slow down, and here are some example locations. In addition to the short-term recommendations provided in the Safe Route to School study, we have also implemented other safety improvement measures based on our ongoing review and evaluation. For example, we have put in leading pedestrian interval at several signalized intersections near the school. This type of signal timing provides a head start for pedestrians when they cross the street, and they reduce conflict between pedestrians and turning vehicles. As land use around school changes, we continue to evaluate and update school zone signing to help drivers recognize the presence of schools and students. And finally, at some of our busier intersections, we have put in crossing guards to help ensure orderly movement of traffic and safe crossing for the pedestrians. As we install these short-term safety improvement measures, we were also busy constructing longer-term projects to enhance safety for those who walk and bike. Here's a list of our sidewalk project and bike safety enhancement projects since 2016. In addition to improving safety, these projects make walking and biking much more appealing and help us reduce the number of cars on our streets around the school.
Call me through Teams on my phone, then I can show you what's on the screen.
So here is the same list of projects displayed on a map. And as you can see, we have implemented safety improvement measures in almost every region throughout the unincorporated area of the county. And as mentioned in one of the earlier slides, traffic safety requires a combination of engineering, enforcement, and education. Therefore, we are really grateful for all the input and support from the California Highway Patrol and the Sheriff's Office when we undertook this study. We work closely with them to make sure we support their enforcement effort. For example, our speed surveys are updated regularly to allow the use of radar for speed enforcement. And of course, no traffic safety program is complete without education being incorporated into the overall strategy. As part of the Safe Route to School study, we provided a number of training to the schools, and here are a few examples of these trainings. So for those who would like more information, I have listed here our web address, phone number, and email address. So feel free to contact us if you have any questions. At this time, I would like to allow the committee to provide comments or ask questions. So let me stop sharing. And if you would like to speak, please raise your virtual hand and I'll call on you.
Rick, I don't see a place to raise your hand.
Oh, is that right?
Maybe I didn't get all of the, yeah, I don't see that. So I have a few questions.
If you click on the participants in the Zoom section, that's where the raise hand is.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I have some comments if.
Yeah, I don't think anyone else has raised their hand. So go ahead, Bruce.
Well, I have a number of comments. Now you say we should get a hold of you if you have questions, and I have definitely got a hold of you. And I don't get very much of a response, much feedback. But anyway, one thing I would like to say in terms of the CHP, you know, we've really struggled with the CHP just to get them to agree that cyclists can use the full lane. So I know Art had talked to one of the officers, but we need to go a little bit higher, I think, and talk to some of the officers at a higher level, because they're still pushing back on this idea that bicycles can use a full lane in spite of the signs and in spite of the sharrows. And you guys are finally doing a great job of painting these sharrows in the middle of the lane. I still think we need more sharrows, and I think we need more of those bikes may use full lane signs. I think you should just replace the bike route signs with bikes may use full lane signs, and it will cost you nothing extra. So, my request is for you to work closer with the CHP and Sheriff's Office to work on this idea that bicycles can indeed use the full lane. I also would like to know how you guys define a school zone. I see some of these signs at school zone ends, and it's really short. So from where do you do it? From where to where? What's your criteria for school zone?
Yeah, the criteria is in the vehicle code. It's a state law.
Okay, well, what is it?
So approximately the boundary of the property of the school on up to about 500 feet, I believe.
Okay, because I definitely see some that don't fit that criteria. So just today I rode by Marshall, and so I forgot the name of the Leone or something is the name of the street, and it's definitely less than 500 feet where it says the school zone ends.
Yeah, and we'd be happy to take a look at it, and if the school zone signage location needs to be updated, we'd be happy to do it.
Okay, so it's from the boundary and not from a front door or something like that.
It's from the boundary of the school grounds.
That's good to know. Also, I'd like to know more about the criteria for a scramble, because we've talked about having a scramble on Redwood, one at Higher and the other one's at Mabel. And there's been a lot of people really think that Higher in particular could benefit from a scramble. So I would like to know more about the criteria that you use for a scramble.
Yeah, and I don't have those information with me here, but that is something you and I can definitely talk about, maybe offline separately.
Yes, okay, that sounds great. Also, there was prior to this last Safe Routes to School, there was a Safe Routes to School study that was done by the Alameda CTC, and in it they had identified a number of things, including white lines to delineate the parking between the parking of the cars and the unimproved sidewalk. And you guys did a great job of implementing that on Stanton. It was very successful, got people to park in the street where they belong. And in that study, it was suggested to put that on Mabel and also on Paradise Knolls. Those are two areas, that's Creekside and Castro Valley High School that run right alongside them. So I would like to see that included in the Safe Routes to School. It's very intuitive. Those white lines are very intuitive. Everybody understands a white line, and they worked really well on Stanton. So, the superintendent, Parveen Ahmadi, who I don't think is here today, explicitly requested those to be included in the most recent report. So can you please do that?
Well, no, in terms of the white line, just like you say on Stanton, we look at it on a street-by-street, case-by-case basis. If it's something that meets engineering standard, we'd be happy to look into it.
Okay, so can you tell us what the engineering standard is?
Well, the engineering standard has to do with width of the roadway, how much parking is there. Again, I don't think this is the place to go through all the street without having all the information in front of us. I have not seen the ACTC report, so it's really hard for me to comment on it.
Okay, so we can take that offline as well?
Yeah, I'd be happy to take that offline, absolutely.
Okay, and then the leading pedestrian, you guys have been putting those in implementing leading pedestrian timing. Mm-hmm. So I get how that helps from one end. So when the pedestrian starts at the end, like somebody's taking a left turn and they're gonna left turn into the pedestrian. So this allows then that pedestrian to have a little time in the crosswalk before the car turns left into them. But when the pedestrian is coming from the other side, it actually does the opposite. It times it just so that the pedestrian has enough time to get into the area where the car is taking the left turn. So how is this helping pedestrians?
Yeah, one of the benefit of the leading pedestrian interval is you get the pedestrian moving ahead of the car. And you know, the way our eyesight work, you tend to pay more attention when things are moving rather when something is stationary. So by having pedestrian moving along the crosswalk with that leading, with that head start, drivers are more likely to see them, and as a result, actually yield to them.
So you think even the pedestrians who's on the
Hey,
opposite
Rick,
side?
Rick,
Yes, sir.
can you hear me? I think I think you better ask the other folks to participate. This is not a one-to-one dialogue, so we need to get better participation with everyone. I think if Bruce has questions, write it up and we can respond to him. But I don't want to consume everybody's time just to having a one-on-one discussion between you and him. So thank you.
All right.
So I have a comment to that. So this is a working meeting. So this is not, so after I'm done, then other people can also have their comments. But the whole point of this meeting is for people to be able to make comment. And so, I think that you need to take the time. This is why we need more than for a year. So
We need to respect all the other members. So please, if others don't have any comments, you can continue. But I think we cannot make it a one-on-one meeting. I think people need to engage, and the whole purpose of having a broad group is to get broad feedback. So there's a lot of folks here. I mean, hopefully, if they have any questions, fine. If they don't, you can continue.
So Daniel, I think you're missing what I'm saying. So
I don't want to have a one-on-one with you right now. That's what I'm trying to stop. I'm trying to get everybody else to participate. This is not a Bruce Doogie meeting. This is.
So I'm not stopping other people from participating. Just because I have some stuff to say, I'm not blocking other people. So other people can go once I'm finished.
Bruce, I think his point, though, is that you're asking an awful lot of questions that get very deep into details, and I know there are other things we may want to also cover in the meeting. So I understand what he's saying. So just being respectful so that other people have an opportunity to share if they choose.
Yeah, so I agree with that. It's just that I don't get very good responses when I do try to work offline. So I have to sort of try to bring this out into the public. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
I mean, personally, I'm okay with the comments, but I want to be sure we have time. There's two other presentations, and I do have a couple comments on the other presentations. So I don't want to. I know we have is it 7:30 is the end time, Rick?
Yes.
Of the meeting.
Yes.
So if we could break each presentation into 3 parts and set a time limit, and then I think you already offered offline.
Yeah, I'm actually done with all of this stuff.
Okay, thank you. Rebecca, I believe you raised your hand.
Yeah, I have a question about the criteria. I would like to learn more at some point about the criteria for a high visibility crosswalk versus using pedestrian flashing beacons. I'm pretty disappointed that the intersection of Stanton and Carlton only has a high visibility crosswalk and not the flashing beacons. That's a pretty tricky intersection because of the way that there's a curve right before it. So I have stood there even since the new high visibility crosswalk only went in like a couple months ago, and I've still stood there many times for quite some time waiting for someone to like stop for me. So I guess and they're just there seem to be a lot of places where I just think that the flashing lights add so much to pedestrian safety. And so I guess I'm just wondering why those aren't being pursued more.
Yeah, maybe hold that question for my second presentation. We will talk a little bit more about these flashing beacon. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. I think that's all the hands that I saw from the committee. So we'll now turn this over to public comment for the Safe Route to School presentation. Let me look over to the public attendee. So for members of the public, if you would like to make a comment, you may use your computer. There's a button at the bottom. You may raise your virtual hand. If you're calling in by phone, you can raise your virtual hand by pressing *9. Before providing your comment, please state your name and the city from where you're calling. And as a reminder, each member of the public will have up to 3 minutes to speak. Okay, I see one member in the public. Hang on, Roy. I'll get to you here in a second. Let me pull something up to the screen here. Okay, Roy, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening. So Roy Taylor, and I'm a resident of Castro Valley, and I have a very quick comment that won't take the 3 minutes. But I noticed in your presentation on the education part, the education was all aimed at pedestrians and cyclists, and I didn't see any education aimed at motorists or vehicle drivers, which actually present the most hazard. Yeah, it's very unusual for a pedestrian to walk into somebody and cause some harm. It's vehicles that we need to be worried about. So I was wondering why your education does not seem to cover the, any education for motorists. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Okay. I'm sorry, sir. You all hear that noise in the background? No? Okay, looks like it's gone now.
No, it's still there. Someone's television is running in the background.
Yeah.
Looks like everybody's muted from what I can see.
Yeah, let's see. Well, we'll do the best we can. Okay. Next on the presentation list, let's go on to presentation number 2. Is another informational item to update the committee on our Highway Safety Improvement Program funding application. I will also be the presenter for this, so let me bring up the PowerPoint and share the screen here. Stand by, please. Okay, so this is my second presentation tonight. I will be presenting the funding applications that we sent in for Highway Safety Improvement Program recently. So let me give you the outline of the presentation. We will begin with an overview of the Highway Safety Improvement Program and the funding opportunity available to the county. Next, I will present the projects that we submitted for funding considerations. After that, I will give a brief update on the status of the application. And at the end, I will give you an overall summary and answer any questions that you may have. So let's start, let's take a look at the Highway Safety Improvement Program. This program is a federal aid program, and the purpose of this program is to reduce traffic fatalities and serious injuries on all public roads. To achieve its purpose, this program provides money to help local agencies to implement safety improvement projects. Back in May 2020, a call for project was announced for local agencies just like us to submit our safety projects for funding consideration. In response, we sent in 2 projects to improve, these 2 projects are for improving pedestrian safety on Arterial Street. First project is for installing rectangular rapid flashing beacons. And our second project is for installing pedestrian hybrid beacon. Sometimes they're known as the hawk signal. So let me take you through both of these projects. So our first project is installing rectangular rapid flashing beacon. Here is an example of this device in Castro Valley. This device is activated by a standard push button. Once activated, an intense rapid flashing beacons is displayed to approaching drivers to capture their attention. And this leads to the safety benefit of this device. Drivers are given timely warning when pedestrians are about to cross the street. This allows drivers more time to react and slow down if necessary. This results in higher yielding rate for pedestrians and making the crossing safe for pedestrians to use. For this project, we have identified 5 locations, and here are the characteristics of these locations. Number 1, we're targeting crossings that are uncontrolled, meaning there are no existing stop signs, there are no traffic signals to stop traffic for pedestrians to cross the street. Number 2, the crossings are near pedestrian generators such as schools, commercial district, or public parks. And number 3, the crossings are located along busy 2-lane arterial streets. So let's take a look at each of these 5 locations. Our first location is in San Lorenzo at the intersection of Hacienda Avenue and Ricardo Avenue. This crossing is located adjacent to Lorenzo Manor Elementary School, and this crossing is used heavily by parents and students at the school. Next location is on Meekland at the intersection of Medford Avenue in Cherryland. We have 2 AC transit lines running along Meekland, and installing flashing beacon here will improve the safety for the transit users. Next location is also on Meekland. This is at the intersection of Sunset Boulevard. In addition to serving transit users, this crossing is also used by those going to Cherryland Elementary School, located about half a mile to the east. Next location is in Castro Valley at the intersection of Grove Way and Dolores Streets. The Baywood Court Retirement Community is located just about half a block from this intersection. And this crossing, as a result, is used by senior citizens as they travel to the Senior Community Center adjacent to the Japanese Garden, about half a mile to the south of this location. Our last location for the rapid flashing beacon is in the Fairview District. This is on D Street near Twin Creek Court. We have several pedestrian generators here. We have AC Transit running on D Street. In addition, we have a public park, community center, and playground adjacent to this crossing. So here's all 5 locations that you see on the map here. The total funding amount we're asking for here is $249,500. Our second pedestrian safety improvement project is for installing pedestrian hybrid beacons. Here's an example of this device. And here is a close-up look of these beacons when they're mounted on the mast arm. So this device is also activated with the standard push button. When activated, the beacon will cycle to red and signal to approaching drivers to stop. Pedestrians are given the walk signal to begin to cross the street. And that is the benefit of this type of device. By providing pedestrians the right-of-way when they cross the street, conflict between vehicles and pedestrians is significantly reduced. For this project, we have identified 3 locations, and here are the characteristics of these locations. Once again, we're targeting crossings that are uncontrolled. We're also looking for crossings that are near pedestrian generators, such as schools and parks. And lastly, these crossings are located along multi-lane arterial streets. So let's take a look at these 3 locations. First location is on Lake Chabot at Keith Avenue. This crossing is used heavily by those going to the community center and the park to the north. There's also an elementary school, Chabot Elementary School, just located south of this intersection. Next intersection is also on Lake Chabot. This is a little bit down at Congress Way. Many healthcare facilities are located nearby. We have Eden Hospital to the north. There's a dialysis center just adjacent to the crossing. And we have a number of medical offices in the area. So the pedestrians using this crossing include both the patients and health worker going to and from work. Our last location is on Redwood Road at Modesto Street. This crossing provides pedestrian connection to the shopping center at the Castro Valley Village. It's a map showing all 3 locations for the hawk signal. The amount of funding we're asking through the Highway Safety Improvement Program comes to $821,000. So what's the status of these applications? Well, these applications were submitted in November, just about a month ago. By May of next year, we expect Caltrans to make an announcement to let us know which projects have been selected to receive the funding. If approved, design phase should begin in 2021, finishing up in 2022, and with construction to follow after that. Okay, before we go into Q&A, let me give you a quick summary. Back in May, a call for project was announced for Cycle 10 of the Highway Safety Improvement Program. In response, we submitted 2 pedestrian safety improvement projects. Purpose of both projects is to improve pet safety at uncontrolled crossing locations on busy arterial streets. Total funding that we asked, just a little bit over $1 million. And we expect to hear from Caltrans sometimes in May to learn about whether our projects have been selected. So let me stop sharing. So for a committee member, go ahead and raise your virtual hand if you have questions or comment. Let's start with Rebecca this time.
Hi. First, I want to say thank you for this presentation and for getting submitting this application. I'm very excited about the Hawks, the hybrid beacons. I don't think we have any of them in Castro Valley yet, and I think that'll be a huge improvement. I am super excited about those 3 locations you chose. I agree there's a high need there. I'm just, I guess my question is, why wasn't, I looked at the last 2 BPAC agendas, and this wasn't on either of them. So I guess I'm wondering why we were only informed after the fact, after the applications went in, and why we weren't consulted on locations beforehand, especially for the rapid beacons. You know, you had a long list of locations, and you know, maybe people on this committee would have had some input as to the priority. You know, if you maybe you have 9 on your list, but you had like 15 on your wish list, maybe this committee could have been helpful in helping prioritize. And I'm just wondering why that wasn't done.
Yeah, some of this timing-wise, there are deadlines we have to meet. We learned about it back in May, and we have to get them in by November. Just trying to get the applications put together, and at the end of the day, I believe we put together a very competitive package. So we feel good about our chances to getting the money.
Yeah, no, I mean, I certainly hope we get the money. I hope it's a competitive package, but I'm just pointing out that there were 2 meetings in between the announcement and the grant deadline. That's all.
Okay. David.
Yes, thanks, Rick. I just wanted to say that we're really excited about the collaboration and think it's a great thing to be adding means by which to make crossing Meekland Ave way easier. Just historically, it's the pedestrian infrastructure and right-of-way has been lacking, and so it's great to see the county making investments in the corridor. And especially given that Cherryland and like the edge of the Meekland corridor is an MTC community of concern. It's from an equity perspective, it's really awesome to see that those developments happening, and we look forward to further partnerships.
Okay, thank you. Dan.
Yes, Rick, thank you very much for going through all that. And the RFBs they work really well, and they're a very cost-effective solution for these crossings. And I'm hoping there's a way to get some money in there to, there's a couple different ways, because when I look at all 5 of these locations, one of the challenges is going to be the site distance, the site triangles. Mm-hmm. And the low-cost way to deal with that is to, add more red curb. Now, fortunately, some of these corners already have, I think the one by the park and also at Hacienda already have some red curb.
Right.
So I don't know. I know that's always a challenge to put more red curb in, or more expensive but less impact would be to add curb extensions. I think at least 3 of these locations already had drainage on both sides, or at least on the uphill side. So you could just do maybe a little bit of a quick build type solution, or even concrete. But just getting, especially talking about, these are schools, so the kids getting out further, so they have that 150 feet to look upstream.
Right.
I know that's going to, $250,000 isn't a ton of money for these RFPs. Are these going to be solar powered, I assume?
For the flashing beacon, they will be solar powered. Yes.
Okay. And now, speaking of the power, I was looking at the Hawks, and those look really good. One of them I was going to ask you about. One tricky one I think is going to be at Redwood and Modesto Street. There's an apartment complex with a driveway like right kind of in the intersection. So that's going to be kind of a challenge to, because they're going to be beyond the advanced limit striping on that one there. And I think every one of those Hawks has some have a lot of high powered lines, right, where you're going to put the mast arms.
Right.
So fortunately, hopefully that cost will be on them, and you can do some advanced notice to the utility companies.
Yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Thank you, Dan. Bruce.
Yes, I just want to thank you for that. It looks really great. I just these Hawks look like they're pretty. They're like a regular light, but just for pedestrians, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, so they look pretty substantial and serious, and I think the locations that you selected seem really good too. So thank you.
Okay. All right. So let's see if anyone from the public side would like to make a comment. Let's see. All right. Stand by. I'm having some screen timeout issue here. So. Zoom is great, except there's so many windows sometimes you lose track of which window is which. All right. So there's someone from, oops, I lost my window again. Hang on. Okay, there's someone from GWNA administration, so I'm going to unmute you so you can go ahead and provide comments.
Hello, Ann Maris here, Dr. Maris. I'm a
Okay.
biochemist, not a medical doctor, FYI. I know it's a little relevant now to say that, but anyway, I'm a resident of Grove Way, and I want to rear my head, hi Michael Williams, and say, I'm here, and I had no idea about this meeting. And I'm on the list, I double checked my subscriptions, and so I just want to make sure that, that I'm here, I'm in the Grove Way area, and mainly between Redwood Road and A Street. So and we really are lacking so much here, and I'm really involved with the neighbors on the ground, and I'd like to be able to participate when it's really affects our neighborhood. And so I just want to speak out and say, hi, I'm here, and I'm trying to be involved. And so my only comment currently about what you just spoke about kind of involves the first part too, which is the safe routes to schools. So here on Grove Way, we have an elementary school, which has been closed, with the COVID. And we also have that huge retirement center. So we don't even have crosswalks, let alone bike paths here. And I see every day when school was in, I'd see the parents in the street with their wheelchairs and strollers because, there's no handicap, there's nothing. And so like, if I had the opportunity to provide input prior to your submission of this grant, I would have suggested we had more pedestrian safety up at the top of the hill where there's visibility problems and there's a lot of children going to this elementary school because there's more of them on the road than there are seniors. Seniors generally I mean, there's not a whole lot of them that are going to walk half a mile, even though it's flat, really, honestly. And we have a lot of kids that are walking. So that's all. I just want to say I'm here. I want to be involved. And I went on Public Works and I, again, clicked everything to try and be notified. And I don't know why I wasn't. If you have any suggestions as to how I could be, I also sent you an email. That'd be great. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, Roy, let me unmute you. Oops. Go ahead, Roy.
Okay, thank you again, Roy Taylor, Castro Valley. So a couple of comments on this one. First, it's great to see you applying for those grants. I was wondering if you know what is the total amount of the grant that's going to be available so that we could put your $1 million, you know, against that, and then we might be able to judge the chances of you getting funded or partly funded. I'm also wondering, you know, in terms of safer ways to cross the road, why don't you consider just putting in a stoplight that's, you know, button activated as a crossing, which is kind of very popular in some other areas. So it's a regular stoplight, it's on green all the time, somebody presses the button to cross, the light changes to red and, you know, vehicles stop. I think drivers are much more used to stopping at red lights than, you know, different things. I don't know how effective the flashing is, but it's the same thing. Cars all have to stop anyway when you're crossing. I guess it's the same idea. It would just seem to be more of a normal kind of procedure for car drivers to stop at a red light when that came on. And although I think, you know, this is a great project, I would echo some of the other comments that say, I think this would have been a great project to bring forward before the BPAC and get some input ahead of time. So it is disappointing to see that did not happen, and hopefully you guys can kind of look for more opportunities to bring projects forward, you know, before you kind of get through the whole design and submission in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's go on to our last presentation. Our last presentation is the improvement project along East Welding Boulevard. Our presenter is Amber Lowe. Amber is our supervising civil engineer. She's the designer of that project. So Amber, if you're ready, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Just give me a second. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. I think you guys can see it, right?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Amber Lowe, and I am the engineer for the East Welding Boulevard Improvement Project. This is a multimodal improvement project in the unincorporated area of Ashland. This map shows the project location. East Welding Boulevard is located on the south side of the Ashland community. This project goes from Meekland Avenue to Langton Way, which is about a block from Mission Boulevard. The last block will be constructed as the Mission Boulevard project. The proposed improvements include Class 4 protected bike lanes on both sides of the street, new continuous sidewalk, pavement repair, safety improvements for crossing the street, storm drainage improvements, and traffic calming measures to reduce vehicle speeds and improve safety for pedestrians and bicyclists. This is what East Welding Boulevard currently looks like. Right now, the sidewalk from Meekland Avenue to Langton Way is not continuous from one end to the other, and there is no bike lanes yet. There are some areas where the existing surface is asphalt or unpaved. Some segments have narrow sidewalk, like what you see here in the picture at the top right, like this section right here. Beginning a couple blocks east of the railroad tracks, there is sidewalk on both sides of the streets, but they have road curbs. These curbs are kind of slanted and are easy for cars to drive over them. In the bottom right picture here, you can see how they are being used as driveways to access parking all along the front of some of these buildings. And then on rainy days, depending on how much rain, there might be ponding of water in some areas too. Also, the pavement condition is pretty bad in some spots. You can see some examples of that on these two pictures on the left. In the bottom left picture is the railroad crossing in the project limits. There isn't sidewalk on either side of the tracks right now and no walkway. These are the existing and proposed typical sections for the roadway. We are proposing to install Class 4 protected bike lanes on both sides of the streets for this project next to the sidewalk. A Class 2 bike lane was planned for this roadway in the Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan, but after deciding on a Class 4 for Mission Boulevard, we wanted to continue it on East Llewellyn. And this typical section is how we got it to work. By the way, this design actually addresses a lot of the comments we received from the community. The Class 4 is supposed to provide the most protection and comfort for people on bikes and do the most to encourage a broad range of users. We want to bring out those bicyclists that are interested but concerned. Those are the folks who are curious about bicycling and would like to ride more if they felt safer. This project is listed in the 2019 Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan as a top priority sidewalk project. It will connect to existing and future sidewalk installation projects in this community. The pedestrian-friendly improvements we are installing for this project include new sidewalk with vertical curbs, high visibility crosswalks, pedestrian and bicycle crossings at the railroad tracks, drainage improvements, an RRFB crosswalk at Langton Way, and traffic calming measures like installing bulb outs and planting street trees. All of these things will help improve safety and walkability on East Llewellyn. Currently, design is halfway done and completion is expected at the end of next year. Also, as mentioned at the last unincorporated BPAC meeting, our agency submitted an ATP grant application for this project. Now I will show you how we will transform East Llewellyn. First, you will see the existing condition, and then the following slide will be the same location with the schematic layout of the proposed improvements. The project will start on the west side of Meekland Avenue. The black lines that you see here are the right-of-way lines. That's the property line that separates the public right-of-way and private property. We have 66 feet of right-of-way throughout most of the project. This is what the street will look like after construction. We have new sidewalk on the inner side of this lighter gray area. The Class 4 bike lane is next to it, and they are separated by a 1-foot border. Next to the street, we have the landscape zone for the new street trees. Then at the corners, we will install ADA curb ramps. The bike ramps will be next to them, but they're going to be separated from each other. This slide is showing Wickman Court to Raglan Street. The railroad is between Wickman and Westerman Court. And the BART tracks that you see here next to the railroad is actually above the street. The improvements in this segment is similar to the other segment. We will work with the UPRR and CPUC on the configuration of the pedestrian crossing at the railroad tracks. Most likely the crossing panels will be extended both on the north and south side by a little bit more than what is shown here. The safety improvements at the railroad crossing will include adding gates on the north and south sides for pedestrians and bicyclists. This is showing Morrell Street to Langton Way. The right-of-way is 66 feet, as I said earlier, and it gets wider right before the ramps, the I-238 ramps, and then past the ramps, it's 79 feet wide. The improvements here are like the rest of the project, but we will be installing a dedicated eastbound left turn lane for the on-ramp. And then also a traffic engineering study recommended an RRFB for the western crosswalk at Langton Way. This blue dashed line is the eastern end of the project limits, and then to the right of that is the Mission Boulevard project that is currently in design. And this concludes my presentation at this time. I welcome your questions or feedback that you want to share with me.
I'm sorry, I can't raise my hand. I'm on my phone. Are you all there?
Yeah, I think Rick said you press *9 to raise your
Okay.
hand.
Rick's
Yeah, it
muted also.
takes up my whole phone screen, so I have to kind of switch out of the screen with the meeting to go get to my keypad and come back. I live right near the corner of Meekland, and this is Sharon Bohoman, by the way. I'm really excited about this project. That stretch of Welding is treacherous, and I'm so glad to see what you all are doing with it. Just a couple questions. So on the image, it looked like, is it going to be 2 lanes of traffic? I mean, you know, is it going to be like 4 lanes of traffic, or is it going to be two lanes of traffic?
One in each direction.
One in each direction, pretty much like it is now. Okay.
Correct.
The other question I have is, right at the 238 on-ramp, is there going to be something for, if someone's on a bicycle or pedestrian, that on-ramp can get pretty dicey when vehicles are trying to turn left there. And I'm wondering what pedestrian or bicycle protections you have in place for people who may be traveling westbound on Llewellyn and trying to navigate that intersection when cars are trying to turn left. Is there going to be a left turn only light there, or is it going? Are they going to have to hope the cars yield to them?
The cars. That intersection is signalized right now, but I haven't gone that far in the design yet, and I can get back to you. Like, I think I can get your contact information. I'll get back to you on that once I get to that point.
Okay, and I guess just to clarify what I mean, yeah, there's signal lights there now, but there's not a left turn light for the motor vehicle traffic. Mm-hmm. We just have to, you know, it's wait until it's clear for you to turn left. But sometimes if you're there trying to turn left and there are pedestrians, people are often so busy looking and waiting for the cars to clear that they don't always notice people walking in that crosswalk. So I don't know what the plans are, but if they have like a hard left turn light there, I think that's going to, and then just like a light for oncoming traffic so that pedestrians and bicycles can cross there safely. I think that would be a good part of your plan.
Thank you for your suggestion.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll definitely deal with that with the design.
Okay.
Okay, why don't we go to Dan?
Thank you, Rick.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amber, for the presentation. Yeah, what's really nice about this is that almost half the space between the right-of-way is going to be really recreation area, walking and biking, and also the planted area. So that's going to be really nice. I did have a couple questions, and I don't know, Amber, if you can share your screen. I wanted to look at the last design sheet. Just kind of a detailed question.
Is it going this way?
Yeah, yeah, right there. If you could look at the that I know Caltrans has it the exact same way, that crosswalk, the one that goes north-south across the East Llewellyn. I was looking on Street View, and right now the crosswalk goes down towards State Farm, but the property next to it, essentially the whole frontage is like a roll, like you mentioned, it has a rolled curb, and there's not really in fact, the cars are kind of parking more, I'll call it the left-hand side or the west side of that. So it looks like you could move that driveway over where that yellow tree is, and straighten that, kind of what Sharon was saying about that difficult turning movement. I think you might be able to straighten that out right there.
Yeah, I might be able to adjust it. The thing is, I have to get the class 4 bike lane in there too, and then I wanted it like in that side of the street, the crosswalk. So yeah, I could work on it. This is just a kind of like a schematic. And you mentioned about the cars parked in front of the buildings. A lot of them are actually encroaching into the right of way right now. So you can see like in the picture here, like, you know, these cars are parked in front. Half of it is chopped off by my drawing because they're encroaching.
No, that's going to be an education right there. The other question, yeah, so just look at that, because I think maybe that driveway might be able to be moved over, and then the ramp could just go, you know, down to like 12 and 6 o'clock up and down. I was also going to ask, on these corners, like at the top left view, is it Morrill Street as one example? Are those 20-foot radiuses or 15 on the corners?
That one is kind of, I did 28.
28?
Yeah, in order to do the vehicle turning movements for the design vehicle.
Yeah, if there's any way to go like a 15-foot radius, it just, because the challenge, of course, is the people on their bikes are on the right-hand side of the right turning cars. So anything we can do to slow those people down. I know these streets are narrow, so the truck people will scream, but you know, just anything we can do to slow down the traffic, just to be considered. But other than that, it looks like a really nice,
yeah,
nice
tightening
project.
on the East Welling side, I think might help a little bit too. But yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Let's go to Michael.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
Kind of like Dan, I just want to, from the standpoint of the San Lorenzo Creekway at Meekland, we're going to need to kind of coordinate that. So if, you know, we have conceptual drawings for the San Lorenzo Creekway. You just stated that yours is more or less, you know, conceptual. So at some point we can do this offline. I just want to point out that we're going to encroach, you know, the San Lorenzo Creekway project comes to the corner there. So we'll just have to overlay those drawings just to make sure we get the best thing possible for, you know, that intersection.
Okay.
Throwing it out there.
Thank you, Michael. Rebecca.
Hi, I just want to say thank you for this presentation and for these designs. They look great, and I hope that we start to see these sorts of designs roll out elsewhere in the unincorporated area. I'm really particularly excited about the protected bike lane, the class 4 bike lane, especially along a road that has a lot of driveways, because we were kind of under the impression that that wasn't something that you were really in the past, that hadn't been pursued in the past. And so excited that's looking like an option, because I can think of a lot of roads where that would be a great solution. And I also just want, I note here that it looks like on your slide that the travel lanes are narrower in the proposed diagram, if I'm reading that right, that they're going to be 11 feet wide in the proposed. And if that does in fact narrow the existing lanes, I think that's actually great for helping to slow down traffic. And again, I hope we can, you know, use these same, you know, I hope we can take a similar approach to other projects elsewhere in the unincorporated area to slow down traffic and, you know, really provide better infrastructure for bikes and pedestrians.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bruce.
Yes, I just want to say, wow. This idea of the protected bike lanes really caught my eye when I looked at it earlier. I was very impressed and pleased. I also noticed a lot of tighter radiuses. I know Dan caught one that wasn't quite as tight, so I encouraged to tighten it up like Dan said, but I saw quite a few other ones that I noticed were a lot tighter than what's out there right now. So I just thought that was awesome. It also looks like you have quite a few double ramps, pedestrian ramps, which is also beneficial to pedestrians instead of having just a single one. But I do have a few comments. So one of the questions is, how are you separating? What is it that separates the pedestrian and the cyclist? There's a 1 foot of something.
I'm trying to match what we're going to put in for Mission Boulevard. Dan, if you want to answer this one too. I think last time I talked to Amy, we were going to go with like a concrete band between the sidewalk and the bike lane.
Yeah, so there's 2 ways to separate the bikeway from the pedestrian zone. One way that we've done it is with a thin strip of linear tactile warning, like a yellow. It looks almost like when you go to the train station. They're not like domes, like a curb ramp, but they're long yellow bars. But now we're seeing is being done is just having a different color paver in between. So you have to have a 1 foot. So you have asphalt bikeway, then a 1 foot concrete, and then a 1 or 2 foot space that could be a different color pavers, like a dark red. So you have those 2 color contrasts before, and that is that's actually what we're switching to on as Amber mentioned, on Mission Boulevard. So I think both can work fine. It's a cost.
Yeah, I just think it would be great to have it as flush as possible, so that that you can use, so pedestrians, when they're, happen to have there's a high school right there, and there's 10 of them walking home from school, they can take some of the bike lane, and then when there's a group of cyclists, they can take a little bit of the little give and take, So it seems like this idea of having something flush would be good.
Yeah, we're thinking that too.
Yeah. Probably my biggest concern is on the intersection at Meekland. You have the bike lane right now. So heading westward, it merges into there's a turn lane, a right turn lane there, and it merges right into the right turn lane. And so it seems like that's going to be pretty precarious for a cyclist, especially when the first time they go through there. So is there any way just to keep them right on the sidewalk? I know it's narrower because, we're just talking about sharing space. So maybe that's just where you merge for that half a block and just keep them everybody on the sidewalk.
On the sidewalk through Meekland. And that's the way I had it originally on the draft. But then when I got to check the turning movements for the truck, I think it was, I'm not sure if it was the fire truck, it couldn't make it. And then so one of the other options that I was considering is to leave that part as a regular class 2 so that it could go across Meekland. But I'm still looking at that. This is just like a schematic at both ends, like where I'm doing conforms and stuff like that. I still have to work out the details.
Okay, yeah, I just see that one as pretty, actually, that's the only part that I see as sort of problematic from a cycling standpoint. Also, I wanted to talk about double yellow lines. Are you planning to have double yellow center lines there? Because we know that in general, I don't know if there's going to be some cyclists riding on the street or not, but we know in general double yellow lines, people follow lines, and you guys put a lot of double yellow lines out, and people do not like to cross them to pass cyclists.
Do you mean like double yellow, like 2 yellow stripes, or double sets of double yellow?
Just the 2 lines that are in the center to separate the east from west.
Yeah, I think the one set of double yellow works here, right, Rick?
Yeah, but could you also put dashed lines, so people can pass, because that depends on your sight distances.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I think that people are reluctant to cross a double yellow line for any reason, whether there's a UPS truck parked there or a slow cyclist that decided they didn't want to take the bike lane, or, it's just in general, these double yellow lines cause drivers to drive past close to the cyclist. So I'm just always watching out for that. I also just noticed crossing Llewellyn, it doesn't look like there's very many opportunities. I guess, there's some at T-junctions where there's, I guess, some opportunities. I guess there is when you guys have the 4-way, but when at the T-junctions, there's no crosswalk. I know there's, maybe you don't need a crosswalk, but it just seems like there's not much of an accommodation for somebody who wants to cross.
Yeah, I kind of kept the same crossing that are existing at the same location, and we actually had a crossing study done, and that was how we determined that a crosswalk, the crosswalk on the western side of Langton Way needed an RRFB.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So they did pedestrian counts for crossing.
Okay, great. I think that was looking at my list of my comments. Yeah, great, fantastic. I'm super excited. And I just think that's going to work well with the East 14th, which I think is just awesome. I just was by there. I just rode by there yesterday, and just great progress happening on that second phase. So super excited. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
All right. David, you have a comment?
Yes. Amber, looks like a great project. I just wanted to share some possible lessons learned from outreach we're doing for an unrelated project last year in Fremont. We did some need finding with the school for the blind in Fremont, and while we were doing a transit project, one of the biggest things we heard from them was that a similar project like this, if you look at the Walnut Corridor in Fremont, that project was difficult for folks with disabilities, specifically visual impairments, because the lack of tactile differentiation between the cycle track and the pedestrian travelway. And so that's something you might want to keep in mind, maybe do some specific outreach on that, because it's a very similar project with similar goals. Just want to throw that in there.
Okay. Thank you, David. All right, so we'll now turn to the public, see if anyone would like to make a comment. Okay, hang on one second here. Okay, Roy, go ahead.
Sure, Roy Taylor. Well, first, it's a great project, and as many other people have said, it's really exciting to finally see protected bike lanes. It's something that's much needed. A couple of comments in terms from a cyclist perspective on the protected bike lane. The challenge is always the junction. Turning left, how do you get out of the bike lane and reposition yourself in the road for a left turn? And turning right, typically you tend to take away the bike lane and make it a right turn for cars with a little dotted line. And I really wish you wouldn't do that because it's a nightmare for cyclists when cars are in that space because they don't respect bikes and they don't understand it really is a bike lane. And they just, pull into that space. So I'm wondering, you may have covered that with a question from Bruce. I apologize if it was the same question, but how can we kind of protect cyclists at the junction, either turning left or turning right? And again, I kind of comment it's a great project to bring before this group, and hopefully you'll continue to come back and get additional input as your designs develop. And finally, I think someone may have commented about one of the trails that HARD, Hayward Area Rec, is putting in place. And this might connect with it or be part of that. And I think that raises a really good point around when there are different agencies developing trails, because I know HARD has their own roadmap for trails, and it looks pretty nice, but kind of where is the coordination happening between different agencies when they're all thinking about putting in either bike lanes or trails and connecting them? And again, this group might be a good group to have some input into how those come together and be able to give feedback on that. But thank you. Great project. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, thank you, Amber. Good job. And that is all the presentation we have tonight. So we're going to move on to item number 4 on the agenda, discussion item. We have one item for discussion, and that is to approve the action minute for the last 2 BPAC meetings, the ones in June and September. So first, we'll let the committee member to provide comments or ask questions about the action minute. Bruce, did you have a question? I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I have a comment on the minutes. So I had asked for the video recording of the last meeting right after the last meeting. So I would like to be able to get a hold of these video recordings so we can take a look and check those meeting minutes. Because I'm pretty sure that like Joanne Lauer had some comments in the public comment that still don't show up in the first set of meeting minutes, and just in general, I would like to have be able to view the meeting, to go back and look at the presentations and such.
Okay, thank you, Bruce.
So that's something that you can do. Provide. I mean, it'd be great if you just put it on the website, but.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. I don't know the access about the video. So
Okay, it is a public document, and it is subject to the Freedom of Information Act. So, you know, there shouldn't be any reason not to do it. It's a public meeting.
David, did you have a comment or did?
Oh, sorry, hand still raised.
Oh,
From
okay.
last.
All right. And anyone else from the committee would like to say something? Okay, let's go to the public, see if anyone would like to make a comment. Anyone from the member from the public? Okay, I don't see any. So I guess at this time, I would like to ask if one of the member would like to make a motion to approve the action minute from the last two meetings. Anyone?
I move to approve the minutes from the last two meetings.
Thank you, Dan. Can I get a second? Someone like to second?
I'll second it. Shanita Chu.
Thank you, Chanita.
You're welcome.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the action minute from the last two meetings. Are there any objection from the committee members to the motion? Okay, I see no objection, so the motion passes. Thank you very much. Item 5 on the agenda is public comment. If a member of the public would like to speak on items not on the agenda, please raise your virtual hand and I will call on you. And I see one raised hand. Let's see. Okay, Roy, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Rick. I just wanted to make a couple of observations just on the kind of logistical organization and function of the BPAC committee. And, you know, BPAC is Bike Pedestrian Advisory Committee. And I see a lot of discussion about bike pedestrian, that's good. It seems a little light on the advisory side, is my perception just as an observer. A lot of the presentations tonight were really not things that you could get advice on. You know, the first two presentations were really historical. This is what we've done in the past, things going back to 2016. And I'm not really sure of the purpose of spending time on that, because if, you know, it's a done deal, there's really no advice that you can get. And where this meeting really came alive, and I think became a lot more valuable, was really in the third item, which was a specific project, the one on Llewellyn. And you guys are 9 months into this in the BPAC. I think that's the first specific project that's come up. And I would encourage you to spend less time on these informational type presentations and more time on specific projects and looking for input on those and bringing those projects up for discussion much earlier in the process. Even the Llewellyn one is 50% done in design, but bringing things forward and more of them, and also really meeting more often, because there must be a lot going on in the unincorporated area, and yet there's only one project come forward, you know, for really detailed discussion. So, you know, a couple of examples at the recent, I think at the MAC 2 weeks ago, there was a presentation on the Norbridge-Strobridge potential project in the interchange there on 580. It included some aspects of sidewalks and extending bike lanes. I don't know, is that something you're going to discuss here? You know, what are the criteria that you choose for which project should come forward for discussion here? I think that would be a good one. And then, as I mentioned in the comments on the last item, Hayward Area Rec District has their own plan as well around connecting trails, and it's a great plan. They're putting in miles and miles of trails, and some of those trails really are bike lanes in streets, and so there's coordination and cooperation between different agencies. And I'm just not really sure how those agencies are cooperating together and which body might be looking at that combination of trails and the work you're doing in total and being able to give feedback on that also. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Roy. All right. So that was item 5. So I think we've come to the end here. I want to thank everyone tonight for participation. Next meeting is 2021, March 25th, 6 o'clock. Agenda will be sent out prior to the meeting. It is now 7:22, and this meeting is adjourned. So thank you again.
Rick, there's several people on the panel that have their hands up on that last item. Are we not allowed to talk on this?
Oh, well, yeah, sorry, I didn't see that. Go ahead, Sharon.
I just wanted to make a comment on the last speaker, and correct me if I'm wrong. I am new to this panel. With regard to the Welding project, I know that we were a little more engaged in that conversation here, but it should also be known that there have been community meetings too, where we have been giving community input on this project. So I've actually attended a couple of those community meetings, as well as a couple of meetings regarding the San Lorenzo Creek Trail. So I think that there are other means by which we are getting community input, and then when we bring it to this meeting, there may be other things we're discussing, but maybe there just needs to be more communication so that the community will know opportunities where they can go and have more conversation and input into the process. So if I'm offline with that, but that's been my experience so far, particularly with these 2 projects. I just wanted to give that feedback.
Okay, thank you. Rebecca.
Okay. I sent someone an email about this at Public Works, and I can't remember who. There is another funding opportunity, the Alameda County Transportation Commission, the 2022 Comprehensive Investment Plan, which is due in February 1st. And I had reached out about putting that on the agenda. And I definitely in March would like to hear about what Public Works has applied for. These are meant to be projects that are kind of, ready to go, kind of like sort of it looks like it's hit the ground. Yeah, projects that are ready for implementation kind of in the next 4 years. And so I would have really loved to hear what Public Works is planning on applying for. And I certainly hope Public Works is applying for things from that pot of money.
Okay. Bruce.
Yeah, I want to second a little bit of what Roy said about the advisory. So right now it seems to be mostly informational. It's kind of a one-way process. BPACs are, meant to be working meetings so we can talk about process and projects. I have a list of items, so I won't bring them up right now, but I have a list of items that I would like to put on that agenda, and some of them I've mentioned already. So center lines, policy around center lines is one, delineating between sidewalk and parking is another, the policy of bikes may use full lane signs. It seems like you guys pretty much are figured out that the ramp, the pedestrian ramp, using double ramps. But there's also some specific things that are small projects like bike boxes on just a couple of intersections like northbound Castro Valley Boulevard Redwood at Castro Valley Boulevard, for example. So there's a lot of little ones like that, and like, going through Forest, connecting Forest and Norbridge, with bicycles, so that, but still blocking the cars, kind of like you already have. So there's a lot of stuff that would be nice to talk about and get into the nitty gritty of the detail in this, which is what this is supposed to be all about. So thank you.
Thank you. Michael.
Yeah, hi. I'm going to echo 2 things that have been said by, it looks like, Bruce, and something I think Sharon said also. So just for the public's information, in general, like HARD's approach to everything we're doing with our trails system, which is all up on our website, is we look at Alameda County plans, we look at City of Hayward plans, we look at every local plan that's been adopted or it's in process. So to a degree, the public should know that as we put our plans together, we're already looking at what other agencies have put together, how we can dovetail into that, but so that is taking place, and we do meet with, like as Sharon said, there's been community meetings, different types, or agencies are brought together in some of those projects in different configurations. But that said, there's still little gaps. Like I'm not, Amber's not here now, but I'm not sure how well versed she was even about the San Lorenzo Creekway, which was a little surprising to me given the things she's working on with Welding and Hesperian. And, so she and I have talked offline, so that's good. But yeah, from that standpoint, same thing, City of Hayward, we had something where we had been working with them, and then one person there who was in charge of something with bikes didn't know anything that we were doing. So it's like gaps still occur. So that's where meetings like this are helpful, especially if you're going to work on things, to help fill in the gaps. We should be talking about projects that are going on, and then where they dovetail, where they fit together, things that are kind of semi-overlapping, just so that we're all aware, and then the public feels better about what's going on, because then the agencies look like we are working together, and then I think that will help public perception of what agencies do in general. So that's just my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Okay, it is 7:28, so I'm going to call that this meeting is adjourned.
Hey, Rick,
yes,
Daniel.
Oh, Daniel,
so
please go ahead.
Just to clarify, Sharon is absolutely right. The public has various venues. We have 3 or 4 in MACs now where we present things to the MAC. We do community-based outreach for specifically where the project is located. So we've done Llewellyn, we've done the Meekland. Michael, by the way, we're fully aware of your project, and it's tied to our Meekland project rather than the Llewellyn project, because that kind of fits in very well.
Right.
We do multiple outreach. This body is not just for people who bring complaints. This body is to provide feedback. I appreciate Rebecca's feedback in terms of funding. That's the kind of information that I say, hey, have you known about this thing? That kind of, if we don't know about it, it kind of gives us a signal. We really do appreciate something like that. However, if you have a specific issue that you want us to address, you don't want to wait for a quarter so that we can look at it at this meeting. You can present that, and Bruce does that all the time. The fact that sometimes we don't agree with what he's recommending doesn't mean we're not doing it. So sometimes he comes up with an idea we don't agree with, and we don't implement. So, but we are fully transparent. We provide every information available out there. I read an article last time. Somebody said that every person with a driver's license thinks they are the traffic engineer. However, we don't just come out there and put things. There's a lot of issues involved. Rick is our traffic engineer. He's a highly qualified, skilled person. We hire consultants like Dan's group that are extremely professional. They know what they're doing. And what we need from the community is not an engineering expertise, but rather what's going on in the community, so that we can actually learn what the community's desire is. So Sharon, you're absolutely right. We do make sure that despite the MACs, despite the board meeting, despite this meeting, we want to hear from the community that's directly impacted by that specific project. So we also call for a community meeting in that specific project. And we get direct feedback from the residents out there impacted by that project. So, and one of the reasons we wanted this BPAC to be large enough to include the Michael Williams, the BARTs, and the transit agencies and everybody else, is so that this body also works as, gathering information for collaborative purposes. So we do a lot of trail projects. We're implementing the San Leandro Trail, the San Lorenzo Trail. This is not something we kind of sporadically do. We collaborate quite a bit. So I would say this body could become extremely instrumental if we approach this as a positive dialogue place where you can contribute. I have no question into the competencies of my staff. So your feedback helps us engage in what the community wants. So if you want to make this where you come in and won't complain, I can tell you one thing, it's not going to be helpful. If you want to complain, you can send me an email. But out of respect for everybody here, we need to engage in a manner that says, what do you think about it? How can we improve? You know, I saw this thing in, like Bruce does, I saw this in Europe. Can we do this in terms of traffic? So those kind of stuff are helpful. To come and complain about public works, I can tell you, you can complain, but that's not it. That's not that's not the purpose of this body. So I really do appreciate everybody's engagement. However, we will continue to engage the community and make sure that the community hears from us in addition to the BPAC. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel. Anyone else has anything to say before I adjourn the meeting? Okay, so it is 7:32. The meeting's adjourned. So thank you again, everyone, for coming. Stay safe. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and good night.
Thank you. Take care.
Yep.